Hi and welcome to this Narratory tutorial where we're going to build a Hello World bot. And to show you what we're going to end up with once we're done, I will start the chat here with our bot. And we will start by having the bot greet the user and ask, how are you feeling? We will let the user then say, for example, I feel good. In which case the bot will say, that makes me glad, and the bot is then going to ask a question, do you want to answer that again? Just to show you that you can go back and reuse previous parts of your dialogue. We will also show here two buttons, allowing the user to click one of them or, of course, write instead. Once we if we say bad here instead, we will have a different answer, and again we will ask the same question. Another feature we will try to build is to add support for at least one out-of-domain question, and I mean things like asking who are you? This wasn't really what the bot expected at this part of the dialogue, but we do have an answer for it, so the bot is going to answer that. And then the bot will go back to where it was in the flow. Once we say no to this question, then the bot will simply say all right and then say goodbye, and the session will end. So that's the end result that we're going to go for. And to start off, we will create a new bot. And once you open this creation dialog, you will see that you have a Hello World template, and this is actually the end result of this tutorial. So if you want to skip ahead and start off where we end, you can pick this template. But for now, we will create a new one using the empty template here instead. And English language, create bot. And now that we have this blank canvas here for our new bot, we will look on the left-hand menu here and see that we have four options. The top one being narrative. The narrative is a sequence of bot turns that typically starts with the bot saying hello, greeting the user, and it probably ends with the bot either saying goodbye if the session ends, or it could simply leave a question open-ended, can I do anything else for you? And the user might just drop off. You can think of the narrative as the main flow through your dialogue, where the bot takes the initiative. And then we have something called user initiatives, and these are opportunities for the user to take charge of the dialogue, for example, by asking a question or by redirecting the dialogue in a certain way. And we will use both of these two building blocks as we build this up. So starting off, we will create our first bot initiative here, a bot turn that we're going to call greeting. And we can see that we named it greeting here, and then on our right side we have a block. We have a gray block representing a bot turn. And a bot turn can be of various types. This one, it starts as being a request, but you can also change the type to a reply, which makes it output only. And in this case, we're going to suffice with output. We're going to say hi, and we can also just copy paste this utterance block here and create another one. The bot will simply pick one of these two utterances on random. And this is enough for our greeting. We will then create a second bot turn here, and we will call this one query mood. And this is where we're gonna ask the question, how are you doing, to the user. And we can, since it's a good practice to offer variation, we can add another one here. For example, how are you feeling today? All right. And now this should be a bot turn of type request, since we want to ask a question to the user. And we can then add a user turn from the menu over here or by pressing the plus sign here. And that will create one of these blue blocks representing a user turn. And the user turn has two inputs. It has a green intent block and it has a follow-up bot turn. So basically, if the user says something mapping to an intent here, then the bot will say something that, or do something that this bot turn here defines. In this case, we don't yet have any intents, as you can see here, so we will head over to intents and create one. And what's an intent? Well, an intent is the bot way of trying to understand what you're telling it as when you're chatting with it. So, for example, you might say, I am doing fine. So we can create our first intent mapping to that. So, doing fine. And we can add a few different example phrases here that are basically different things, different ways of saying the same thing. So the user might just say great or all right. We can add a few more examples here. Okay, that should be a good start. And now we can add a second one for doing bad. And here we can add a negated version of this, not okay, not fine, doing bad, so. And as your bot grows, you will have to add more and more of these example phrases, but for this demo this should be enough. So now we have two intents. We will head back to our narrative and we can see that now this green block now has two options here, doing fine and doing bad. And now we will add, we will keep doing fine here and we will add an answer saying that's great to hear. And we can copy paste this block and create a second user turn here which uses the doing bad intent instead, and another reply then. We can say I'm sad to hear that. So here, depending on what the user says, the bot will reply. And then we will finish off by having a goodbye bot turn of type reply, where we simply say that's all for now. And now we can build the bot to just make sure that we have something that works. And as we continue this tutorial, we will add additional functionality here. So let's start a new session with a bot, and then here we can say I'm doing fine. We can see that the bot answered correctly, that's great to hear, and then ended it by going here. We can try instead to say not great, and we get the second answer here. So that seems to work for now. What we're going to do now is to add an intermediary step here before we go to goodbye. We're going to add another bot turn saying or named query one more time. And remember how we when we first showed the bot, we will simply ask, do you want to answer the same question again? So let's add that here. Do you want to answer the same question again? Of course, a silly example, but the point is to show you how you can move back in the flow. So in this case, we're going to need two intents, one for yes and one for no. And in the future, we're gonna supply a few of these intents out of the box, but for now you have to create them yourself. But it goes very quick, so we will just add a few ways of saying yes and a few ways of saying no, like that. And we go back here and we pick yes as the first one, and then we copy paste this and we select no here. So if the user then says no, then we're simply going to move on to the next step here in our narrative. And we will, if the user says no, we will say all right and then head on to the goodbye. And this is the default behavior. Unless you tell the bot to do something else, to go somewhere else, it will simply move on to the next bot initiative in your narrative. But here, if the user says yes, we want to go back to the query mode bot turn over here. And we do that by clicking this setting box on the block and adding a go to setting to this bot turn. And you can see that this new row appeared here. And here we can see that this drop down is populated by a few values, and it's our 4 bot initiatives over here, and then an exit conversation and human handover options. And we will go into what they are at a later point. In this case, we're going to use query mode, and we're going to say, great, fun, let's do it again, and then go to. So the bot is going to say this and then do a go to this part of the dialog. Let's build it and see if it works. Okay, I'm doing fine. Yes. So now we can see that we had that answer, and then we got the same question again. We will now say bad. Whoops, bad. You can here note that the Narratory bots automatically have fallbacks in case the bot doesn't understand. Of course, you can also change these if you want. And now we say no here, and the bot continues and exits. So that seems to work. And now, if you remember again, we wanted to add these buttons to allow the user to click yes or no instead of writing. And to do this, you go to output over here, where you have a few different blocks for various types of output that aren't only text. And this bigger blue block has, we call it a rich text block, and it has text input, but you can also add additional fields to it. And in this case, we're going to add suggestions, and you do that by clicking this settings button and checking the suggestions, and you see that you then get an input here for a similar text block. So we can reuse this one, and here we can add yes, and we can copy paste this and add a second one, no thanks. And we're gonna put this in instead. This is gonna jump out because you can't have two different types of blocks in the same input here. And then we're gonna simply put that there instead. So now if we build the bot again, we will see that we will in this part of the dialog show buttons. So let's just quickly go there, and you can see that we get these buttons here. So currently these yes and no, they have to map to these intents that you have. So you have to make sure that these phrases are included in the intents. In a later update, we might improve this for bots that are relying heavily on buttons. Okay, so now we will add our first user initiative to this bot, and we go over to user initiatives, we press new user turn, and here we add something called query who are you. And remember that we wanted to allow users to ask this out of domain question. So here you see that you start off by having a blue block, a user turn, and then it looks the exact same. So you have the same building blocks here, and instead of using the intent block that we used before with the drop down, we're gonna add this example block, and this is a shortcut for things that you don't need to reuse, like this question here, who are you? You can simply add these examples right away, and Narratory will create an intent for you. So we will add 2 examples here, like that, and then we will reply, I am a hello world bot built during a tutorial. Hope you like me. Like that. Okay. And we press build. And once it's complete, we can test it. And now we can ask this at any point in the dialog. So we can say now, tell me who you are, please. And we can see that we get this answer, and then the bot will continue where it was in the dialog. So here we can continue then and say, good, I am fine. So good is not something that we had in this as an example phrase here, so we might as well add it right away. Alright, so that now we actually are we've landed in what we wanted to achieve with this bot. So the last thing that I will show now is that you can review all the chat sessions that you've had with the bot if you go to logs, and you can here see a recap of the sessions that you've had. You can see what intents has been classified, what confidence scores they have, and in this last case, remember that the bot didn't understand good, and you can see that you had a fallback here, and that's why you got this fallback handler from the bot instead. So that concludes this first tutorial. I hope you found it useful, and please check in again. We're going to add much more tutorials going forward. Thank you for listening. Bye.